My girlfriend snapped, "You're not man enough to keep me," during our anniversary dinner, so I quietly signed up for the gym, landed a promotion, and walked the red carpet with a supermodel. I never saw it coming, honestly. We'd been together 2 years, and I thought we were building something real together. I'm Jake, 28, working as a renewable energy consultant in Baltimore, making $89,000 a year. Nothing flashy, but stable and growing in a field I'm passionate about. Brianna was this stunning blonde who worked part-time as a social media influencer, pulling in maybe $28,000 annually while I covered about 80% of our shared expenses. I didn't mind because I thought we were partners working toward common goals. That night at Romano's, our anniversary spot, I was actually planning to talk about our future together, maybe moving in officially, building our savings as a team. The restaurant had that warm lighting she loved for photos, and I'd made reservations weeks in advance because I knew how much she valued these moments. She was scrolling through her phone during appetizers, which wasn't unusual, but something felt different about her energy that night. "Jake, we need to have a serious conversation about where this relationship is going," she said, setting down her phone with this expression I'd never seen before, like she was about to deliver a business proposal. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about what I want from life, what I deserve, and honestly, I need to know if you're the man who can give it to me." The way she said, "man," made my stomach drop, like she was questioning something fundamental about who I was. "What do you mean exactly?" I asked, though part of me already knew this wasn't going to be the conversation I'd hoped for. She pulled out her phone again and started swiping through screenshots she'd apparently prepared for this moment. "These are engagement rings, Jake. This one's $15,000, this one's $18,000. My friend Ashley just got engaged to a guy who makes half what you do, and her ring cost more than my car." She showed me photo after photo of massive diamonds, vacation destinations in Greece and Italy, designer handbags worth more than most people's monthly rent. "I'm 26 years old, Jake. I'm not getting any younger, and I need to know that the man I'm with can provide the lifestyle I deserve, can step up and show the world that I'm worth investing in." The words hit me like cold water because suddenly our entire relationship was being reduced to a transaction, a cost-benefit analysis where I was apparently failing the audit. "Brianna, I thought we were building something together, working toward our goals as a team. I mean, we could start looking at rings if that's what you want, but maybe something more reasonable while we save for a house or—" "Reasonable?" Her voice got sharp enough to cut glass, and I noticed other diners starting to glance our way. "You think I'm worth something reasonable? You think 2 years of my life is worth a reasonable ring?" The conversation spiraled from there, with her laying out expectations I'd never heard before, dreams that apparently required me to spend money I didn't have to prove my commitment. "Either you're ready to be the man I need, or you need to step aside for someone who is," she said, her words carrying this finality that made everything crystal clear. "I'm not going to waste any more time with someone who thinks I'm worth reasonable." When I suggested we should focus on building our financial foundation together first, actually planning for a sustainable future instead of blowing our savings on status symbols, she exploded. "There it is. The real Jake. Always thinking small, always making excuses, never willing to make the grand gesture." She stood up so abruptly her chair scraped against the floor, drawing stares from half the restaurant. "I'm done pretending this is enough for me." She grabbed her purse and walked out, leaving me sitting there with a table full of barely touched food, a $200 dinner bill, and the sudden realization that the woman I thought I knew had been keeping score this entire time. The other diners were trying not to stare, but I could feel their pity radiating across the room as I sat there processing what had just happened, how 2 years of what I thought was love had just been reduced to a failed investment in her eyes. Instead of chasing after Brianna with the expensive gestures she demanded, I made a decision that would change everything about my life trajectory. The morning after our anniversary disaster, I walked into Elite Fitness Center, the high-end gym I'd driven past every day for months but never had the courage to enter because of the intimidating clientele and premium membership fees. I figured if I was going to rebuild myself, I might as well do it properly, and paying $180 a month would force me to actually show up and get my money's worth. That's where I met Diego, this former military trainer who looked like he could bench press a small car but had this unexpectedly philosophical approach to fitness and life in general. "You look like someone who just got his world rearranged," he said during my first session, watching me struggle through what should have been basic exercises. "Woman trouble?" When I told him the short version of what happened, he just nodded like he'd heard this story 1,000 times before. "Let me guess, she wanted you to prove your worth with your wallet instead of appreciating what you actually brought to the table. Classic mistake on her part, and an opportunity on yours." Diego became more than just a trainer. He was like having a life coach who happened to specialize in turning frustration into muscle mass and mental toughness. While I was sweating through brutal workout sessions, Brianna was flooding social media with passive-aggressive posts about boys versus men and knowing your worth as a woman. Her Instagram stories became this constant stream of motivational quotes overlaid on photos of luxury items, with captions like, "A real man invests in his queen," and "Some people are content with mediocrity, but I know I deserve more." I stopped following her accounts after the third day of this digital tantrum, but mutual friends kept updating me whether I wanted to hear it or not. She'd started dating Marcus within 2 weeks of our breakup, this flashy real estate agent who drove a leased Porsche and apparently had no problem showering her with the expensive dinners and designer gifts she'd been demanding from me. Her social media transformed overnight into this curated display of their relationship, with photos from high-end restaurants, shopping trips to Nordstrom, weekend getaways to Virginia Beach where everything was meticulously staged to look effortlessly luxurious. Finally being treated like a queen, she captioned one post showing off a new handbag that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Instead of feeling jealous or inadequate, I felt this strange sense of relief, like I'd dodged a financial bullet I hadn't even seen coming. Diego had this way of putting things in perspective during our sessions. "She did you a favor, man. Showed you exactly who she was before you made any permanent mistakes. Now you can focus on becoming the best version of yourself instead of trying to fund someone else's fantasy lifestyle." I threw myself into work with the same intensity one was bringing to the gym, and it started paying off in ways I hadn't expected. There was this major renewable energy project our company had been developing, a new solar panel efficiency system that could revolutionize how residential properties generate power, and I volunteered to lead the research team even though it meant longer hours and weekend work. While Brianna was posting photos of champagne brunches, I was in the lab running calculations and testing prototypes, driven by this newfound determination to prove something to myself rather than anyone else. My dedication caught the attention of senior management, particularly when my team achieved a breakthrough that increased energy output by 23% while reducing manufacturing costs. Within 6 weeks, I was presenting our findings to a room full of potential investors from Silicon Valley, explaining complex technical concepts to venture capitalists who saw dollar signs in sustainable technology. The presentation went better than I'd dared hope, with one investor calling our innovation the kind of game-changing technology that defines the next decade of renewable energy. Meanwhile, Marcus was starting to show his true colors, and Brianna's social media posts began revealing cracks in their perfect facade. The expensive dinners became less frequent, replaced by more modest date nights that she still tried to make look luxurious through creative photography and strategic hashtags. I heard through friends that Marcus expected expensive gifts in return for his generosity, turning their relationship into the same transactional dynamic she tried to force on me, except now she was the one being pressured to prove her worth through material contributions she couldn't afford. The Silicon Valley investors were so impressed with my renewable energy innovation that my company offered me a promotion to senior project director with a $135,000 salary and stock options that could potentially be worth millions if our technology went to market successfully. I was still processing this career breakthrough when something even more unexpected happened that would completely change the trajectory of my life. The same week I got promoted, my project caught the attention of a major Hollywood production company that was planning a documentary about climate change solutions and the innovators working to save the planet. They wanted to feature my work in their film and invited me to a high-profile environmental gala in Los Angeles where they'd be interviewing potential subjects and networking with investors in green technology. Diego was almost more excited about this opportunity than I was, And that's when he dropped a bombshell that explained his connections and confidence in navigating different social circles. My sister Carmen works as a talent agent in LA, he told me after one of our training sessions. She represents some major actors and actresses, and she's been pushing the industry to focus more on environmental causes. This gala is exactly the kind of event where you could make connections that go way beyond just business. The gala was held at this stunning venue in Beverly Hills, with solar panels powering the entire event and sustainable catering that somehow managed to be both environmentally conscious and absolutely delicious. I felt completely out of my element walking into a room full of celebrities, directors, and environmental activists, but my months of training with Diego had given me a confidence I'd never possessed before, and my genuine passion for renewable energy made conversations flow naturally even with people whose names I recognized from movie credits. That's where I met Sophia, who wasn't just another actress but someone who'd been using her platform to advocate for environmental causes since the beginning of her career. She approached me during the cocktail hour after overhearing my conversation with a documentary producer about solar panel efficiency rates. "Excuse me, but did you just say you've improved residential solar output by 23%? Because I've been looking for someone who actually understands this technology instead of just talking about it for publicity." What struck me immediately was how different she was from what I'd expected from a Hollywood actress. Sophia was genuinely curious about the technical aspects of my work, asking detailed questions about implementation costs, scalability, and the real-world impact of widespread adoption. She wasn't trying to impress anyone or perform for cameras. She was having an actual substantive conversation about something that mattered to both of us. "I'm so tired of dating actors who think environmental activism means posting the right hashtags and driving a Tesla to the coffee shop," she said with this refreshing honesty that reminded me why genuine connection had always mattered more to me than superficial attraction. "I want to spend time with someone who's actually making a difference in the world, not just playing a character who pretends to care." We talked for over an hour about renewable energy, climate change, and the frustrating gap between Hollywood's environmental messaging and actual action, and I found myself forgetting completely about her celebrity status because she was just this incredibly intelligent, passionate person who happened to have millions of followers on social media. When the evening was winding down, she did something that caught me completely off guard. "I have a movie premiere next week in Los Angeles, and I was planning to go alone because I'm honestly tired of the whole scene," she said. "Would you consider being my date? I think it would be refreshing to attend one of these things with someone who has actual substance to talk about instead of the usual Hollywood small talk." I stared at her for a moment, processing what she'd just asked. "You want me to be your date to a movie premiere? Like, with photographers and red carpets?" "Exactly like that. Unless you're not comfortable with that kind of attention, which I would completely understand. But I have a feeling you might surprise yourself with how well you handle it." The irony wasn't lost on me that Brianna had called me not man enough for her lifestyle expectations, while here was someone infinitely more successful asking me to accompany her to an event that would put me in front of cameras and media attention I'd never imagined experiencing. I thought about Diego's advice about embracing opportunities that scared me, about Brianna's social media posts about real men, and about how much my life had already changed since that disaster anniversary dinner. "You know what? I'd love to be your date," I said, and Sophia's smile made me realize I was about to enter a completely different world than anything I'd ever known. Walking down that red carpet with Sophia at the premiere of her latest environmental thriller was like stepping into an alternate universe where I was somehow the main character instead of watching from the sidelines. The transformation Diego had helped me achieve over the past few months was undeniable. I'd gained 20 pounds of muscle, my posture radiated confidence I'd never possessed before, and the custom tuxedo Sophia's stylist had arranged fit me like it was designed specifically for my body. The photographers went absolutely crazy when we stepped out of the car together, with flashes creating this constant strobe effect that should have been overwhelming but somehow felt energizing instead. "Jake, over here." "Sophia, who's your mystery man?" "What's your name, sir?" "How did you two meet?" The questions came rapid fire from dozens of entertainment reporters, and instead of freezing up like I'd expected, I found myself calmly explaining my work in renewable energy and how Sophia and I had connected over our shared passion for environmental causes. "He's not just my date," Sophia told one reporter from Entertainment Tonight. "He's one of the most brilliant innovators working to solve climate change, and honestly, spending time with someone who's actually making a difference in the world is so much more attractive than the usual Hollywood scene." The interviews were supposed to be brief photo opportunities, but reporters kept asking follow-up questions about my solar panel innovations and the potential impact on residential energy costs, turning what should have been celebrity gossip into substantive discussions about sustainable technology. One reporter from CNN actually asked for my contact information to schedule a longer interview about renewable energy solutions, and I watched Sophia beam with pride as I explained complex technical concepts in terms that general audiences could understand. Inside the theater, I was seated next to actors and directors whose movies I'd watched for years, but instead of feeling starstruck or out of place, I found myself having genuine conversations about environmental activism and the responsibility of influential people to promote meaningful causes. The after-party was even more surreal, with A-list celebrities approaching me to discuss solar panel installation for their homes and asking for recommendations about making their lifestyles more sustainable. Back in Baltimore, the coverage was impossible to miss, and I knew Brianna had to be seeing it because mutual friends were texting me screenshots of entertainment blogs speculating about Sophia's mysterious environmental scientist boyfriend. The photos from the red carpet looked like something from a magazine spread, Sophia absolutely stunning in her designer gown, me looking confident and sophisticated in my tuxedo, both of us laughing at something one of the reporters had said. The headlines were everything Brianna had always dreamed of being associated with. Sophia's new mystery man steals the show. Environmental scientist becomes red carpet sensation. Hollywood's hottest new couple talks climate change. I could only imagine how those articles were landing with someone who'd spent months posting about finally being treated like a queen, while dating a guy whose entire lifestyle was apparently built on credit card debt and borrowed luxury. Sophia posted one photo from the evening on her Instagram, a candid shot of us talking seriously during one of the interviews, with the caption, "When your date can discuss solar panel efficiency rates and look incredible in a tuxedo. Intelligence is the ultimate aphrodisiac." That post got over 2 million likes and thousands of comments from her fans praising her for choosing substance over flash and dating someone who's actually changing the world. Meanwhile, Marcus had proven to be everything I'd suspected and worse, according to the gossip network that somehow always found its way back to me whether I wanted to hear it or not. His real estate business was apparently struggling. He'd maxed out multiple credit cards maintaining his fake wealthy lifestyle, and he'd started pressuring Brianna for expensive gifts and financial contributions to their relationship, claiming that real partnerships require investment from both sides. The irony was absolutely perfect. She'd left me for someone who could provide the luxury lifestyle she demanded, only to end up with someone who expected her to fund his performance of success. Brianna's social media posts had become noticeably less frequent and significantly less extravagant, with more modest date nights that she was still trying to make look luxurious through creative photography and strategic cropping that couldn't quite hide the fact that her champagne brunches had been replaced by coffee shop meetings and her designer shopping trips had disappeared entirely. The woman who'd called me not man enough was watching her not man enough ex-boyfriend appear on major news outlets discussing renewable energy policy with respected journalists, while her own relationship had devolved into exactly the kind of transactional nightmare she'd tried to create with me, except now she was the one being evaluated based on her financial contributions instead of her emotional value. As my relationship with Sophia became more public and my career reached heights I'd never imagined possible, Brianna launched what could only be described as an increasingly desperate campaign to reconnect with me, starting subtle and escalating to levels of pathetic I wouldn't have believed if I hadn't witnessed it myself. It began with social media posts that were clearly directed at me, even though she never tagged me directly, missing the simple times when people were authentic and real, posted alongside a throwback photo of us from last Christmas, and sometimes you don't realize what you had until it's gone, but growth means admitting your mistakes. The posts got more obvious over the following weeks, with quotes about learning to value the right things and wishing you could go back and make different choices that were so transparently aimed at getting my attention that even our mutual friends started commenting with eye-roll emojis. When the subtle approach failed to generate any response from me, she escalated to direct messages that started apologetic and became increasingly frantic as I continued to ignore them. "Hey Jake, I know this might be weird, but I saw the coverage of your success and I just wanted to say how proud I am of you. You always deserved amazing things." When that got no response, she tried a different angle. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us and how things ended, and I realize I was wrong about so many things. Would you be open to meeting for coffee sometime? Just to clear the air and maybe find some closure." The messages kept coming despite my complete lack of engagement, each one revealing more desperation and less dignity. "I know I hurt you and I probably don't deserve a response, but I miss talking to you. Miss us. Could we at least be friends again?" When direct appeals to me failed, she started enlisting our mutual friends as intermediaries, which created this awkward situation where people I'd known for years were approaching me with messages they'd clearly been asked to deliver. My friend Ryan called me one evening with obvious discomfort in his voice. "Dude, I'm sorry to even bring this up, but Brianna asked me to reach out to you. She says she's learned from her mistakes and wants to make amends." I cut him off before he could finish the rehearsed speech. "Ryan, I appreciate you trying to help, but I'm not interested in revisiting that relationship. I'm genuinely happy now, and I'd prefer to keep moving forward." The friend-based campaign continued for weeks, with different people approaching me at various social events, all delivering variations of the same message about how Brianna had grown as a person and wanted another chance to prove she'd changed. The most pathetic attempt came when she actually showed up at my office building during lunch hours, apparently hoping to catch me during my break and force a conversation I'd been successfully avoiding. My assistant mentioned that a blonde woman had been asking about my schedule and lingering in the lobby, claiming to be an old friend who wanted to surprise me. I started using the employee garage entrance and varying my lunch times, which felt ridiculous but was easier than dealing with whatever confrontation she had planned. The absolute low point came when she contacted my mother through Facebook, spinning some story about wanting to return belongings of mine that she'd apparently discovered while cleaning out her apartment. My mom called me confused and concerned because Brianna was being overly emotional in her messages, claiming that she'd made terrible mistakes and just wanted to make things right with me. "She seems really upset, honey," my mom said during our weekly call. "Maybe you should at least talk to her if she has your things." I had to explain to my mother that I wasn't missing any belongings and that this was just another manipulation attempt from someone who couldn't accept that actions have consequences. Meanwhile, Marcus's financial house of cards was collapsing spectacularly, and Brianna was getting a front row seat to what dating someone for their money actually looked like when the money ran out. According to the Gossip Network, he'd been using different credit cards to pay off other credit cards while maintaining his luxury lifestyle performance. And when that pyramid scheme inevitably crashed, he started expecting Brianna to cover restaurant bills she couldn't afford and contribute to rent for his expensive apartment that was apparently about to be foreclosed on. The woman who'd left me because I suggested we be financially responsible together was now trapped in a relationship where she was being pressured to spend money she didn't have to maintain someone else's facade of success. And the irony was so perfect I almost felt bad for her until I remembered how cruel she'd been during our anniversary dinner. 6 months after our breakup, as I was preparing to move to Los Angeles to head Sophia's new environmental foundation while maintaining my consulting work remotely, Brianna sent the ultimate desperate message that perfectly encapsulated everything wrong with her approach to relationships and personal accountability. The text came through at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, from her original number that I'd never bothered to block because her previous attempts had been so easy to ignore. "Hey stranger. I know this is random, but I keep thinking about us and wondering if you ever miss what we had. I've grown so much as a person and would love to catch up if you're ever free. No pressure, just two old friends talking red heart." I stared at the message for a long moment, actually laughing out loud at the calculated casualness of, "Hey stranger," like we were distant acquaintances instead of two people who'd shared an apartment and talked about marriage before she decided I wasn't wealthy enough to deserve her time. The heart emoji at the end was particularly insulting, like she could emoji her way back into my life after months of increasingly desperate manipulation attempts. Sophia was staying over that night, reviewing foundation documents on her laptop while I packed boxes for our upcoming move, and I showed her the message without any emotional investment in her reaction. She read it twice, then started laughing so hard she nearly spilled her tea on her paperwork. Oh my God, Jake, the audacity is actually impressive. I've grown so much as a person, while simultaneously proving she's learned absolutely nothing by trying to manipulate you with fake casual energy. We decided to frame the screenshot as a reminder of how far I'd come, but I had no intention of responding because there was literally nothing she could say that would add value to my life at this point. Instead of giving her the attention she was desperately seeking, I deleted the message and posted a photo from the foundation's launch party on my Instagram account, where Sophia and I were surrounded by A-list celebrities, environmental leaders, and venture capitalists who were funding our renewable energy initiatives. The caption read, "Building the future we want to see. Grateful for partners who share the vision." That post generated massive engagement from my growing network of industry contacts, environmental activists, and Sophia's millions of followers who'd started following my account after our red carpet debut. The comments were filled with congratulations, business inquiries, and praise for our work, but buried among them were several fake accounts that I suspected belonged to Brianna, leaving comments like, "Some people get so lucky," and "must be nice to have connections." My success story had started getting picked up by major business publications as an example of how personal setbacks can fuel professional breakthroughs, with Forbes running a feature about young innovators in renewable energy that included a full-page photo of me explaining solar panel technology to a group of investors. The article mentioned my rapid rise from consultant to foundation director and my relationship with Sophia, describing us as a power couple using celebrity influence to promote genuine environmental change rather than superficial activism. Meanwhile, Brianna was still stuck in Baltimore, and according to the gossip network that continued feeding me information whether I wanted it or not, her life had completely unraveled in ways that would have been tragic if she hadn't been so cruel during our relationship. Marcus had finally been exposed as a complete fraud when his real estate license was suspended for misrepresenting properties and client funds, leaving him unemployed and facing potential criminal charges for financial misconduct. Brianna had been forced to move out of their expensive shared apartment and was now working retail at a department store, living with roommates who actually expected her to pay her fair share of utilities and groceries, a concept that was apparently revolutionary to someone who'd spent years treating relationships like investment opportunities. Her Instagram account, once filled with luxury lifestyle content and motivational quotes about knowing your worth, had become this sad documentation of someone trying to maintain appearances while obviously struggling financially, with posts about finding yourself through adversity and learning that true wealth comes from within, that fooled absolutely no one who knew her actual situation. A year after Brianna's ultimatum at our anniversary dinner, I had established myself as a rising star in both renewable energy innovation and environmental advocacy, splitting my time between Los Angeles and international speaking engagements about sustainable technology that could actually change how the world generates and consumes power. My relationship with Sophia had evolved into a genuine partnership built on shared values and mutual respect, with both of us maintaining our independent careers while supporting each other's ambitions in ways that felt natural and effortless. When Sophia's foundation work took her to film festivals promoting environmental documentaries, I'd accompany her and discuss renewable energy with investors, and when my speaking engagements brought me to conferences around the world, she'd often join me to advocate for celebrity involvement in meaningful climate action rather than superficial activism. The Baltimore Sun featured me in a cover story about local success stories making global impact, with a full spread about my journey from consultant to foundation director and the renewable energy innovations that were being implemented in residential communities across 3 states. The article included photos from my red carpet appearances with Sophia, my presentations to international climate summits, and quotes from industry leaders calling my work transformational for sustainable living. Within hours of the article going online, Brianna's friends were tagging her in the social media posts about it, forcing her to confront the reality of what she'd thrown away for someone who turned out to be a complete fraud with criminal financial behavior. I never responded to any of her messages or acknowledged her desperate attempts to reconnect, having learned that the best revenge isn't hatred or vindictiveness but simply living well and choosing partners who appreciate substance over surface-level displays of wealth. The final vindication came when my former company went public, based partly on the renewable energy innovations I developed, making my stock options worth over $2.3 million overnight and establishing me as one of the youngest successful clean energy entrepreneurs in the Mid-Atlantic region. Sophia celebrated by taking me to dinner at the same restaurant where Brianna had delivered her ultimatum, and we laughed about how different my life had become since that devastating night when I thought my world was ending. "She actually did you the biggest favor possible," Sophia said, raising her glass of wine in a mock toast to my ex-girlfriend. "If she hadn't been so cruel and materialistic, you never would have transformed yourself into the man you were meant to be, and we never would have met." Meanwhile, Brianna was still struggling with credit card debt from trying to maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford during her relationship with Marcus, working retail jobs that barely covered her basic expenses while living with roommates who expected her to actually contribute to household responsibilities like cleaning and grocery shopping. The woman who'd once called me not man enough because I suggested financial responsibility was now learning what actual financial hardship looked like when you've burned bridges with people who genuinely cared about you and built relationships based entirely on transactional expectations that inevitably collapse when the money runs out.